Okay, we're live.
You okay?
Yes.
Hey, welcome to the Irvington Planning Board meeting of April 3rd, 2024. I hope everybody is safe at home. Understand there was a downed tree on Broadway north of Sunnyside. So be careful. Let me introduce the village representatives. There's Sarah Palermo. She's the gatekeeper on Zoom. Ed Marin, the building inspector. Doug Hahn, he's attending via Zoom because the weather didn't allow him to get here. Marianne Stessage is the village attorney. Lori Davidowitz is on the board. Bill McEllicott is on the board. I'm Caesar Manfredi, the chairman. Mike Smith is absent tonight, and we have Mike Fluco. First order of business would be the minutes of March 6, 2024. Everything okay? Minutes, Sarah,
Yes,
Marianne?
I sent my edits, yeah.
All right, I make a resolution. I make a motion to approve the minutes of March 6, 2024. We have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. Okay, moving on to the order of business tonight. Number one would be 116 Main Street Capital LLC. Number two will be 159 Field Point Drive. Number three will be 26 Hudson Avenue. Number four will be 90 Fargo Lane. Number five will be 61 Field Terrace. Number six will be 12 Main Street. Number seven is 39 Fargo. Number eight is 51 Manapon Lane. And number nine is 2 Roland Road. Okay, let's move along. Number one.
Number 10.
Number 10.
I got a number 10. Where's number 10?
Bottom.
Towards the
Oh,
bottom. Mountain
okay.
Road.
Do we really have to do that one?
Yes.
Number 10 is 255 Mountain Road. All right, do we have number one? That would be 116 Main Street Capital.
Hello, hi everyone.
Then we got you.
Okay. I'm Stephanie Bassler. I'm with North River Architecture and Planning. I'm representing Eileen Fisher, who's the owner and sole member of the LLC that owns 116-118 Main Street. The property currently has a special permit for operation of a bed and breakfast. This was originally approved in 2019, and on annual renewal of this permit, the property manager was advised by Mr. Flandro that the permit needs to be renewed by review with this board. So that's my hope tonight, is that you can have a look at the application and share your thoughts on continuing the bed and breakfast operations there.
Okay, it's my understanding that you met all the conditions of the permit, right?
It's in compliance.
And Marianne, everything on? They met all the conditions of the permit conditions. No, we have no questions. There were no complaints.
Check with the police department.
Okay. Oh, I meant to mention, it's good to see the application of North River is still around. The
Oh,
Dutch
yeah.
name. The
Yeah,
original
but-
name by the Dutch was
Exactly.
North. And it's
Yeah.
nice to see it's, and it was North River because the Delaware River was South River. They had a name for Connecticut River, but I can't remember it. And the sewage plant on the Hudson River through New York City is the North River sewage plant, so it's still around.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, we were inspired by the Hudson River and thought that place name would resonate. I'm glad you noticed it.
it was hard to miss. Any questions for us? You have any questions for the board?
I don't.
Right, does anybody have any questions? Lori, Bill? Dan,
No questions.
Mike,
No questions.
anything from the public?
Nobody's raising their hand to speak and there are no comments in the chat.
Do we have a resolution, Mary Ann?
Whereas on December 4th, 2019, the planning board granted a special permit to 116 Main Street Capitol through its sole member Eileen Fisher to operate a bread and breakfast establishment at its property located at 11618 Main Street. And whereas the bed and breakfast is operated in compliance with the requirements for special permit listed in section 224-36B of the zoning code. And whereas the building department has done annual fire inspections of the premises and found it compliant. Now therefore be it resolved that the planning board renews the special permit under section 224-36B of the zoning code, subject to the following. One, the applicant must comply with all requirements of 224-36B of the zoning code. And two, the special permit shall expire on April 3rd, 2029. Renewal of the special permit shall be required to continue the use. Under the provisions for a bed and breakfast special permit, the first one's supposed to be for 2 years and then subsequent ones can be for 5 years if the board chooses.
Yeah, so note that the renewal is instead of 2, you got 5.
Understood.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, we're done and good luck with North River.
But you
Thank
guys
you. Thank you very much. A quick question before I go.
didn't vote.
Do vote.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Oh,
You have a
I have,
question?
what, other than the fire inspection annually, are there any other inspections needed?
No, we do fire inspection every year. We'll do your compliance inspection at the same time.
Okay, all right, good, thank you.
All right, I make a motion to approve the resolution as read.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. Almost forgot your
Thank-
resolution. Number 2.
Thank you.
20. You're welcome. Good luck.
Thanks.
2024-07, 159 Field Point Drive.
Evening, can you hear me and see me?
Yes,
Okay, thank you. My name is Stephen Seacon. I'm the architect working with the Inaba family at 159 Field Point. And be happy to answer any further questions. I got the memo from Han that we satisfied their review. But obviously happy to go through any finer points.
no, we got the water course stuff straight
Yeah.
out. They put the tree protection in and the far was straightened out. Okay. You have any questions from us?
Maybe it's for Ed. I'm just curious about architectural review submission, when that's due.
Gotta get approval from here first.
That's
Give us a call in the morning. Give us a call in the morning.
Okay.
will do.
Any questions on the board? You want it brought up on the screen? Anybody want it brought up on the screen? You have any questions? Questions?
No questions.
No
questions.
Mary Ann, you have a resolution? Sarah, you have anything?
Nobody is raising their hand to speak and there are no comments in the chat.
You have a resolution, Mary Ann?
Whereas in March 2024, Miji Inaba applied for site development plan approval to construct a second-story addition to her house at 159. And was James Hahn Engineering reviewed the plans and in a memorandum dated March 4th, 2024, listed a number of items which were addressed in a subsequent submission. And Suzanne Nolan, the village's landscape consultant, reviewed the plans and in a memorandum dated March 4th, made 2 recommendations which were addressed to her satisfaction. Planning board held a public hearing on the application on March 6th and April 3rd, 2024. The action's type 2 action under SECRA and therefore requires no environmental review. Now therefore be it resolved that the planning board grants the application for site development plan approval of the improvements reflecting in the drawings entitled Inaba Residence Addition and Alterations prepared by Stephen C. Kahn, architect. All it, anyway, and they've specified, there's no conditions.
Okay, thank you, Mary Ann. Have a motion to approve the resolution as read.
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. Okay, now you can go to the next step. You can call Ed in the morning as to how that works. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Okay, thank you all. Have a good evening.
Yeah, well, we'll try with the weather.
Okay, get home safe.
Number 3, 2023-32, 26 Hudson Avenue. I understand this the
We got
gentleman
somebody-
representing may not be here.
Somebody's here.
Nobody's here?
Somebody's here, man.
Somebody's here.
The homeowners.
Homeowner's good. Plans up.
Hello?
Yes,
Hi.
hello.
Hi,
We
this,
we don't see you,
it's
but
a-
we hear.
okay, I hope that's okay. I'm doing it from a cell phone. I lost power. I couldn't get there.
That's
so-
okay.
This is Matt Muzzy, the homeowner. You're on the 26 Hudson Avenue, I guess account, right? Is that the house you're addressing now?
Yes, but we'd like your
Okay,
name,
perfect.
please.
Yeah,
Sam.
my name's Matt Muzzy. I'm the homeowner. Yeah, so
Sure.
Sam is unable to join, but he did tell me that all of the questions have been addressed from Hudson Engineering, and I'm just here to answer any additional questions ultimately.
Yeah, I think it's okay.
All set.
They got the ZBA
Yeah.
approved. And there was something with plantings, Suzanne said that was okay.
Suzanne has one recommendation, but it's in the condition
Okay.
of resolution.
Sarah, anything?
Nobody's raising their hand to speak and there are no comments in the chat.
Okay. Mary Ann, we have a resolution?
In November 2023, Matthew Mossi and Aaron Gorman applied for site development plan approval to construct a one-floor addition to their house at 26 Hudson Avenue, and was the proposed additions the proposed addition requires variances for coverage and incursions into the front and side yard setbacks, which variances were granted by the zoning board of appeals on January 23rd. And whereas Han Engineering reviewed the plan and in memoranda dated October 27th and December 4th, listed a number of items which were addressed in subsequent submissions. Suzanne Nolan, the village's landscape consultant, reviewed the plans and in memoranda dated October 31st and December 4th, made 2 recommendations which were addressed to her satisfaction. The planning board held a public hearing on the application on November 1st and December 6th, 2023, and April 3rd, 2024. Whereas the actions type 2 action under secret and therefore requires no environmental review. Now therefore be it resolved that the planning board grants the application for site development plan approval of the improvements reflected in the drawings entitled Proposed Addition 26 Hudson Avenue, prepared by Hudson Engineering and Consulting, and new addition at Muzzy Residence prepared by Samuel Vieira Architect, subject to installing a construction fence in the rear yard at the face of the garage to prevent construction access within the root of the 48-inch tree.
Lori, any questions on the resolution or anything? Dan? No questions. Mike?
No question.
Make a motion to approve the resolution as read.
Albert?
Any in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed. Okay, thank you. I hope your consultant works out whatever his problem was. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much. Have a great evening. Be safe.
Thank you. We're moving right along. Number 4, 2020-2790 Fargo Lane.
Hello all, John Malone, Ferguson Malone Architecture, representing ETA Fargo, Fargo's residents. We're here, we received variances for an electrical, a change in the location of the electrical meter. Caesar, would you like me to go through the change since it happened?
Bring it up.
Yeah. So the I'll zoom into this area, it shows it. So the meter and transfer switch that was located on the pole will be relocated to this pedestal location here in the yard. It's screened by some existing planting that will remain. And there is on the planting plan some additional planting that will be added to fill in holes in the existing screening that's shown there. And we received the variance for that new location.
Point to where the pole was.
I will, hold on, let me, I think it looks a little better here. Oh wait, this is planting plan. Let's zoom in more. So this is the location of the existing utility pole, which is to remain. The meter and the switch that's associated will be relocated to this location, the house. There's some existing, in the yard, there's some existing semi-evergreen planting here, and then there'll be new planting screening that.
And the pole will remain just a pole without any plywood or 2x4s on it.
Right, so the only thing that'll be on the pole, which is similar to something that we're reviewing later, will be the conduit taking the power from the top of the pole underground. That's the only thing that you're gonna see on the pole.
So it's underground from the pole to the new position.
Correct. And then underground to the house.
Any questions? Sir?
No questions.
Like,
No questions.
Sarah?
Nobody's raising their hand to speak and there are no comments in the chat.
You guys have any comment on this? It's not far from you. Okay, Mary Ann, we have a resolution. Thank you, John.
Whereas on December 2nd, 2020, ETA Fargo received site development plan approval to construct an addition and renovations to the house at 90 Fargo Lane, along with a pool, revised driveway, deck walks, and stormwater mitigation system. And whereas in May 2022, the applicant received revised site development plan approval to make certain modifications to the approved plans. And whereas in September 23, the applicant applied for further revised site development plan approval to do some regrading in the rear yard and relocate an electric meter. Whereas on February 29th, 2024, the zoning board of appeals granted a variance to permit the electrical equipment in the required front yard. The planning board held a public hearing on the application on September 6th and October 4th, 2023, and April 1st, 2024. It's type 2 action under secret and therefore requires no environmental review. Now therefore be resolved that the planning board grants the application for revised site development and plan approval for the improvements reflected in the drawings entitled Parganos Residence prepared by Ferguson Malone Architecture, and the drawings entitled Proposed Additions and Alterations 90 Fargo Lane prepared by Hudson Engineering and Consulting PC. No conditions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on the resolution?
No questions.
Make a motion to approve the resolution as read. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. Okay, John, thank you. We'll see you later.
Thanks a lot.
Number 5 is 2024-03, 61 Field Terrace.
Good evening, folks. I'm Mike Jacobs. I'm here with Jacobs Chang Architecture. On behalf of the owners at 61 Field Terrace, we're here back on our second planning board meeting with a request for a zoning variance, well, not a variance, site plan approval for some modifications to the exterior yard of the house. This, I'm going to share my screen and just kind of excuse me, just kind of jump right into it. Okay. So the property again is a flag lot, which comes off of Field Terrace and accesses 3 properties. This is the furthermost east of those properties, northeast. And the driveway comes in here, and currently there's a big roundabout and a driveway down to a lower garage. So this driveway coverage is about 6,500 square feet. With the removal of some of the asphalt, it's created a couple sort of conditions that are defined in the building code as parking rather than driveway. So this area down here, which has been approved to remain as asphalt, this area here was approved to be demoed and replaced with landscaping. And then the roundabout, of course, also taken out and returned to landscaping. And that's part of a current permit that we have for the house that is kind of wrapping up its renovations. And so this is how that change may take place, with asphalt here, driveway here, and parking here. And I think with the definitions and what we're requesting tonight, this application is a kind of an expanded area here for overflow parking, and then the driveway and the carport remain with a little back space here, and all of this area in the back returning to landscape. Some of the items that came up last time regarding the driveway and the front yard parking was requiring a variance. This here is our front yard setback, this line right here. So this portion of what is now considered parking would be parking in the front yard, requiring a variance. So we're here today, of course, to ask for that and to clarify some of the conditions of that front yard, the existing conditions where trees and landscaping currently exist. So I'll jump into that in a moment. The other areas that we were requesting changes on are this area here, a seating area with gravel, pea gravel, and then some stone pavers to bring us out there. And this rear deck here, which is just over grade, which comes off of the lower level of the property. And so our feedback last time kind of sidestepped, or maybe there weren't too many issues or questions about this deck or the patio, and most of the conversation focused around the front yard and the variance required. So I just want to jump into that at the moment. I'm happy to answer questions about anything else. But with this, to summarize what we're trying to do here, I think although the definitions are changing in terms of how the village code book reads, we are in fact reducing the overall hardscape on the property by about 2,800 square feet from its existing, even with all these changes that we're making, which is not insignificant. And I think in terms of the intention of the code, we want to reduce the amount of stormwater that's sheeting off of impervious ground. And I think that hopefully resonates with the board here tonight. We were asked to do a development coverage summary of the neighborhood. I'll just jump to the next slide real quick. The properties here that are tagged with these white labels are the properties that we've listed. This property right in the middle of the map is 61 Field Terrace. And through, I guess, public records and just trying to understand the development coverage from aerial views in a treed area, this is kind of the best we could do. And what we're seeing here is just a table that in this final column shows the number of properties that are above the allowable coverage. There's 2. This one here, 47 Osceola and 55 Field Terrace. They're slightly above, so we just kind of left those off. This is 6.4% allowable. It looks like it's roughly 6.9%, so kind of a net 0. And then 12% at 47 Osceola, 12.3%. But if we look at the remaining numbers, roughly half of the properties are over the development coverage by more than 1%. So 1% to 8.2% is kind of the range. 61 Field Terrace falls on the sort of upper half of that at about 5.6%. And that's the existing Field Terrace percentage. And then in the proposed Field Terrace coverage, we're going to be roughly requesting a variance for just under 7% over coverage.
Well, while we're on that table, you're actually, you're the second highest of all the houses there, but
Yeah.
you're calculating percent over, the way we calculate it, you're 58.6% over allowable. Ed, you want to
Okay.
explain that?
Doug, you want to take that?
Doug, you're on?
Yeah, I mean, I think I do understand that, right? It's this number here existing over
Yeah,
allowable.
Yeah, you're looking at the overall site, and they're looking at square footage of what you're allowed and how much over you are.
Okay.
Have it at about 58.6% over the allowable and about 7% greater than the existing.
Okay.
So
And is that-
one of the comments was to put a column at the end of that table so that we could see it based on how the planning board looks at it.
Got it. Okay, so that clarifies the question I guess I had on your comments, Doug. So just another column in here with those percentages listed?
Yeah.
Okay.
And no, at least, I don't know about the rest of the board, I'll ask it, but I think that 58.6 is rather high, and you may want to sharpen your pencils about the coverage that you're proposing. Like I said, it's the second highest in the neighborhood on the chart. And I'll ask, Lori?
Well, I'm not, I mean, like last driveway, don't you paver it down?
The pavers, the patio area.
Yeah, I'm not, I mean, it's so, no one's gonna see it but the homeowner, so I'm less bothered by it.
And
Yeah, I'm in agreement with Lori. It's mainly the homeowner.
The parking area counts in the coverage.
yes, the green spot.
So I mean, the 58% is one thing, but part of that also being parking in the front yard. I think it's questionable. But that's there's a reason we have that. Neighbors can see that.
Well, it's not on the street. We've had situations where the front yard intrusion of parking area is on the street, which you feel like the parking area is in the street. And we did ask for screening on that spot there. And
Yeah.
the plans we saw, the plans you showed screening there, but the plans we saw said screening as needed. And
Yeah, I
thought
would,
we said-
if I could address that briefly, I'm happy to just explain what our thoughts were on that. The existing site, this is from that parking area facing west, so towards Field Terrace. The property that's right on Field Terrace is obviously, this is their property line. So there's a pretty thick arborvitae hedge that runs that property line. The property line on 61 Field is roughly just in front of this. There's an easement then, about a 20-foot easement. And then where this tree is roughly at the property line. So we've put in our notes that we can certainly provide screening. I'm not sure what is going to help in addition to this. So if the board feels that this screening is adequate, like that seems fine for us, like unless you want us to add additional, that's perfectly
We would like
fine.
to see the additional screening. I mean, you're putting a parking spaces in the front yard setback.
Yeah.
I'm not going to rely on the neighbor to provide
Okay.
the screening.
Okay. And then in the other direction, looking sort of where the cars essentially are pointing, so looking north, you can see this is the sort of the front yard of the property. The property line's about 200 plus feet beyond. There's a pretty heavy tree line. This is the tree line again, that same tree line here, and there's no houses beyond. But again, we're happy to, I think we've noted on our plans that we can provide screening on this as well.
No, that's okay.
Yeah. Okay. And then I think, just on the question of front yard parking, there's 3 properties that are accessed off this flag lot. And I just thought it would be helpful to put it in the context of what's there. This house on the right has parking in their front yard. You can actually see 2 cars that are sort of parked here in the front yard, and the driveway and the carport are under here. So very similar condition. And part of that's just really the result of how the topography works and the access to the property. On the driveway in, Field Terrace is in the distance here. And as we move into the property, it forks to this property and of course 61. But there's also front yard parking in this front yard as well. And so I feel like there is a need for overflow parking on these properties that are not sort of facing the public street. So when guests come or in-laws or family members, probably helpful to have them somewhere. And the front yard, particularly in the back properties, it's sort of needed. So that would be sort of our position on it, or our request. Sorry.
Well, you could save that argument for the ZBA.
Okay. Oh, that's true.
Personally,
Yep.
I'm not inclined on a precedent that I might not have approved to approve something I wouldn't approve because somebody else approved it before me.
Before we move on, do we know if those are actually parking spots or driveway?
The one on the right looks like a driveway. The one on the left
That distinction
is in a side yard setback, not front yard setback.
Bring up the site plan, so Mike has a question.
Well, no, I'm talking about the comparisons, right?
Oh.
Because you're using them as a comparison for these parking spots, which are parking spots in the code, those might be driveway.
Oh,
which doesn't
okay.
count.
I understand what you said.
Right, so if they're driveway, I understand logically why you're making the comparison, but it isn't necessarily.
I understand your question. Mike was saying those other areas where there's cars, they might very well be driveways as opposed to your proposal that it's clearly parking. Anyway, we're not reviewing other people's property right now.
Okay.
You have
Well, I
anything
mean,
else?
I show it not in terms of like saying, well, somebody else has it and then we're allowed to. I'm just sort of putting it in the context of how these back properties get accessed and how the topography sort of lends
It's a
itself to that.
very tight area for cars.
Yep.
I would check on that, I guess, before you go to the ZBA.
Yes.
They'll definitely bring it up.
Do you have anything else? Right now, you put the screening on the parking to the west, and see if you can work a little bit on the coverage. The majority of board seems to feel it's all right, but if you can work on it, it would be greatly appreciated. And then come back and then you can go to the ZBA, but not before we finish with.
I think Marion.
Yes, Mary.
Yeah, I just wanted to point something out, that coverage isn't significant only for what it looks like to neighbors. It's really important for environmental reasons. And then that's been kind of one of the goals of the comprehensive plan, was to try to reduce coverage. I just wanted to point it out, that it's not just aesthetic, it's largely environmental as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think to that point, one of the things that we're trying to convey, and perhaps I'm not communicating it, is that we're actually creating less paved area on this property, a significant amount.
Yeah, I'm not taking a position one way or the other. I just wanted, I thought there was a misunderstanding. Okay.
I think that's why some of the board is agreeing with you. But
Okay.
we still take a shot at, see if you really need all that. And put the screening in as we want, and then come back. Any further questions though, Lori? Anything else?
Okay.
Dan,
I have none.
Mike,
No questions.
Sarah, anything on the?
Nobody's raising their hand to speak and there are no comments in the chat.
Okay, we'll see you the next time when those, and we do appreciate, as a need, you took some of the blacktop off. Not sure why the blacktop in front of the original over there is still there. Anyway,
It's a
okay,
turnaround, it's a pull out turnaround.
okay. All right, thank you. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
It was 5, 6, 12 Main Street.
Hi, this is John Milan again, representing Ferguson Milan Architecture, representing the Wireless at 12 Main Street. I think we had a few questions last time. This is a project to change the use of the ground floor of the existing building at 12 Main Street. We had some questions about calculations associated with the density calculation and then confirmation of parking. Caesar, would you want me to bring that up and just review it with you?
Sure.
Oops. Sorry. So the changes include on the site plan, we've located, the parking. The capacity that we've shown, and we've updated our calculations for the parking in terms of what it was and what it be. There is no change to the proposed parking, but the proposed use of ground floor residential reduces the parking requirement below what's available on site. And then I think, yeah, that's the limit of the changes to the drawing set. And then otherwise, we provided a site capacity analysis in the format that the building department requested. And it gives the same site capacity analysis that 2 are allowed, and the third would require variance. So we would be requesting a variance for density and for location of this, because the residential use needs a variance to be located on the ground level, and we were requesting a density variance to provide 3 dwelling units instead of 2 on that site.
And you put together an application for the site capacity,
Yes,
which was missing.
which is here. We provided a site capacity application.
So you're missing a variance. You're going the site capacity of 2 to go to 3.
Yeah.
First floor in the residential in the business district. And in your first opening sentence, you said, magic word, you're going for a change in use. So you need a change in use permit variance?
No.
I don't think that's a variance. I think that is a process at the building department.
It's a permitted, it's a permitted use in the business district. Residential is a permitted use. What's not allowed is residential on the ground floor, and that's.
Yeah, but
what
you're
it's going
changing
for.
the use from an office to a residential.
Yeah, but that it's not a use variance.
Okay. All right, John. We're done. Any questions,
Yeah.
I have no questions.
Mike?
No questions.
Sarah, anything from the public?
Nobody's raising their hand to speak and there are no comments in the chat.
All right, John, go to the ZBA, see if you can get the variances. Then if you get them, you can come back and we'll take care of it.
Okay, sounds good.
Don't sign off. I think you're next.
Okay, let me see if I can get the stuff up that needs to be up.
You got it? Yes, you are next.
Yeah.
Yep. Right, next is number 7, 2024-06, 39 Fargo Lane.
Okay, John Malone, First Malone Architecture, representing Dearville Realty, the Sanchez family. When we last met, there were some notes from Hun Engineer about civil issues and engineering issues, and also some notes from Suzanne Nolan. We believe we've addressed those notes in the submission, basically the stormwater analysis, the stormwater design, and the items listed there. We can go through each of those if you want, but I think there's more substantive stuff. Caesar, if you want to start there, or would you like me to just run quickly through the engineering stuff that we provided?
Let's do the trees first. Suzanne looked at the letters, and one of the letters that came in, we had 3 letters from Group, hope I said that right, McLaughlin and Hernandez. One of the letters about tree 28, and Suzanne looked at that, and she also considers tree 29 as sickly, in danger of falling, and invasive species that don't need to be there. Any thought of taking those trees down, 28 and 29, and replacing them with some native species?
Yes, we can do that. I mean, those, again, we sort of err on the side of saving as many as we can. But if there's a concern about them, and you're right, they were indicated to be in, let me just see what they said. One is in fair condition and one is poor. The sycamore maples are natives, but we can replace them with another native.
Okay. And there was a question about the occidentals along the southern lot line.
So I think the tree
Suzanne
in
wasn't,
question-
didn't think strongly about that, because she thought where the topography is, they wouldn't be blocking anything if that's what's proposed.
I
But you may
think-
want to,
I think the concern might be that we on our schedule indicated that the ultimate height of this elegantisima arborvitae was 50 to 60. That's not accurate. So we can revise that, or we can switch out the plant. Our understanding is it's more like an 18 to 20 foot max height plant, and it's considered native right now. So we can revise that just if the concern is that it's too high. But if you want us to look at something, I think it's shady in that location, so it would probably move towards a skip laurel, which we also have on the project. So we could replace that with skip laurels or something like that.
okay.
That's preferable.
And a general comment from Suzanne was to put natives substitutes into the non-natives in the plant list, so that we're growing native instead of non-native.
Right, I think we have a lot of native in the larger items, basically in the trees and in some of the shrubs, but we can take a look at that and revise that to be more native. I think the only place where I probably won't, or I'll look for a little relief there, is in the evergreen shrubs in shady conditions. There's not a lot of native options for that, but we can do what we can everywhere else. We'll make some revisions.
Suzanne is willing to work with you on that.
Right.
And
right.
you gotta, after everything is approved, in order for the building department to make sure which trees come down and which don't, they need to be clearly numbered on site.
Right.
We've had problems in the past at other sites where things happen and the wrong trees go down and the wrong trees stay. So, and need to provide root protection with the trees that are staying. Okay,
Yep.
just on trees. Any questions, board?
No.
No questions. No questions.
On the utility pole, let's get rid of that. Where are you putting that?
So we're locating the utility pole here on the southwest corner of the property. There's an existing Con Ed pole in the vicinity on the other side of the road. So to limit the amount of overhead wire, that's sort of a direct shot across. And then the if you look, I think we showed that in the root protection section.
We don't
This
want another 90 Fargo.
Right. So there's the path of the electrical to the house is shown, and the root impact is on a single tree at this point. So we're trying to limit the root impact. I think the one of the neighbors had complained that is potentially in their view shed. I'm not sure it is, but the other potential location for this pole is a little bit more problematic because the other Con Ed pole is on the north corner. So we could locate the pole here, if you guys are seeing my cursor. But you'll see there's a bunch of existing trees there. And in order to get the underground path to the house from that pole location, there's probably going to be more root impact. And that's one of the reasons we chose this. We're always looking to try to limit the root impact of the excavation or something like that.
And I thought it was.
So, we understand those comments. It refers to see the civils, but the civils weren't submitted. We want to make sure that there's nothing mounted to the pole but conduit.
Okay, yeah, there's just conduit coming down. That's all that we're doing.
Can you make that clear in your next submission?
Yep.
Like I said, we don't want another 90.
Right. Okay.
Any comments? Utility pole board.
Is there a current pole on that?
You say it clearly.
Is there a current pole in front of the house or no?
No, there's an overhead wire from across the street now coming to the current house.
Mhm.
So it, as a way, you know, as a way to get an underground power to the house, so you don't have the, you know, the wire visible
Yeah.
in the, coming across the house, you use the pole. And I think,
And
you know,
it-
sorry, go ahead.
I mean, I'm assuming this is impossible because it's not your property, but you can't dig under the street to do that
Con Ed has been difficult the last 4 applications
for that.
for
Okay,
that.
because that would obviously be the ideal, but.
The other issue, there, Lori, is they have a limit as to how many risers they will allow on a pole, and both of the adjacent poles have the max amount of risers. So meaning you couldn't come down into the ground from either of those poles again. So they're gonna make you
Got
put another pole.
Okay, thank you.
And
I have no questions.
my,
No questions.
and isn't that pole in the front yard setback?
The utility pole is a utility pole. I mean,
They're gonna put the pole there.
yeah, it's gonna be their pole, it's gonna be on their property, but we haven't been regulating the utility pole. We've been regulating all the mounting of equipment to it.
I guess I have one more comment.
You don't want the utility pole in the building envelope.
Good.
No, I did see in the letter from the neighbors behind about the pole. So I think if there is an instance where we can make sure it's located in the in a position where it causes the least amount of impact, this is a place where an opportunity to do that.
Well, one of the things about it, he did go over the fact that digging underground on the northern end of the property. Yes, the northern roots of those trees would.
Yeah.
All right, John, so you need to do what Ed asked about the other civil engineering sheet. And so we're sure that what we're going to get, and we're not gonna get
Well,
pig in the.
we'll add the pole to the civil engineering if it's not there already. And then do you have an opinion about whether we should consider relocating it to the north? I mean, it seems obvious to me that there's more tree impact there, but if it's a priority for the board, you know, we could prioritize the pole over the trees, and there might be a way to, you know, we typically, when there's potential root damage, we have notes for hand digging and you know, treatments that will protect the trees even.
I, on occasion, personally have had to hand dig around a tree, and it's not fun. I don't know. How do you feel? I feel the pole where it is fun. The least damaging from the tree point of view, anyway. Dan?
On the south side, you're referring?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think this is a difficult application, so if we can make it less visible, if we can make the least amount of impact for the neighbors on Meadowbrook, that's also.
Right.
I'm fine with it.
I'm sure we might hear more. Okay,
Hey,
John.
John, just to reiterate what Ed was saying, was not just showing it on the plan, but having a note about no equipment being located on the pole and that it's only for underground.
We can, yeah, and we can provide, you know, we can provide standard details for what's happening at the pole. It's basically, it's a, you know, fixed metal conduit with a sweep, and we can show you that so that it's clear.
okay. Go ahead, John. Let's move on to the lesser problems.
Okay, so I think, hold on a second. Sorry. Just looking for a letter, sorry, 1 second. Yeah. So the other things we addressed, listed here. So we made, based on discussions with the board and from comments from the neighbors, we made some modifications to the building. So we have, you know, reduced the position of the building in the site. We have reduced basically the base elevation of the first floor by 1 foot, and we've also reduced the second floor ceiling height by 4 inches. So the total reduction in reduction in the elevation is 16 inches. And also, we've made some other changes that would affect the impact, specifically the impact on the most southern neighbor, the Hernandez residence. One of the recommendations from their previous letter was to look at the chimney volume to see if that's necessary. So we've eliminated the chimney associated with the wood burning fireplace and are planning to replace that with a gas burning fireplace rather than the programmed wood burning fireplace. We've also squeezed the house in that overall north-south direction by about 10 inches by taking space out of rooms. Right now, the rooms that are sort of setting that direction, there's some secondary bedrooms that are at about 11 feet that we think are at their minimum for that. And there's also first floor things that are keeping that width, the appropriate width. And then the other larger site plan issue that we have that I think I'll have to bring out the plan to show you is that we moved the building back. So the building was about 5 feet forward of this. And if you can see from this site plan, there's a side yard setback that is from the odd shaped lot that's sort of holding the edge of the building here. And then there's a diagonal setback here. So in order to get this corner further out of the Hernandez's view, the Hernandez house is here, and their view is they were arguing is being affected by this corner. We've moved this corner back. And in order to move that corner back, we had to make some changes to the corner of the building in this area to allow it to work. Because if you move it straight back, the building starts to overhang the setback. So we modified the building here and took out a walk-in closet and replaced it with a reach-in closet. And sort of now the building is pinned from here. But that ability to move it back about 5 feet reduced the point that this corner, or the distance that this corner is extending out into the Hernandez view. Also, the process of moving it back effectively lowers that. And I can show you that quickly in the visual impact study, which I'll pull up in 1 second. So I can find it. It's labeled the worst way. So in the visual impact study, we included some sections. And here, just quickly, you can see that point A is the Hernandez structure. And by moving the building back, we've shown the change between the orange line here, which is what we had just recently submitted, and the purple line. And by moving it back, you're actually opening up that corner slightly, which was a corner that was a concern to them. And then here, just quickly to show the effect of moving it back and keeping the elevation the same has the effect of lowering the impact of the roof height slightly, if you can see that. Like, so if there's a line coming from a visual point here and the building actually slides back, it moves back slightly. So that 5 foot change it's not a huge difference, but it did have some impact. So again, we updated the drawings that we had sent before. So again, this is from point A of the Hernandez thing. There's no visual impact in the summer because there's visual impact, but there's no river view impact in the summer. This is the impact proposed now on the with the revisions that we made. Again, yellow is the previous submission, and this purple line here is the new submission. You see that the building has been brought back. This corner has been brought back, and effectively the roof has been reduced both by the ceiling height change and the other and the base elevation change. And then we've left the blue line here, which was the previously approved project, so that you can see the difference. In terms of roof level, it's opened up a lot, and this has more impact on the other two neighbors. And then here we've gotten it, there's a little bit of it that's inside the blue line and a little bit that's extend, but we think it's approximately similar to what was shown on the blue one there. We've also provided, as you requested, Caesar, like actual renderings showing the difference between the previously approved and our current design here, where you see the the impact on the views.
Which is which there, John?
The current design is on top and the previously approved is below, so we can zoom into that. So you see that, you know, this area is left open and the roof has been reduced relative to this one at the same similar condition. You know, this area of sky is the same, or this area of water is the same. So we've done the same for the other two vantage points. Here you can see that there's a slight improvement in terms of the height of the building from this vantage point. And you see that has some beneficial impact on the winter view from the center position. We've gotten it lower. It's obviously significantly lower than the previously approved, but it's also lower than what we had started with. Here again is the examples these are both the winter or the leaf off view of this. You can see there's some river view available above the roof of this where there wasn't in the previous design. And then from the last position, which we were calling position C, which is the Croup residence, again, no impact in the summer. And then here you can see in the area where there is river view, the blue line represents the previously approved, the orange line where we were last month, and then the improvement from the recent revisions. This shows the change to the current design, and then the image on below shows the previously approved design. So you see how there's more river visibility as a result of that from this position. So we believe that the changes that we made have made improvements to all three locations from the previously approved and from the most recent submission that we just revised from. So I don't know if there's something else you guys want to go to next, Caesar. I'll let you decide. Or if you want to talk through that with the board or ask questions.
No, I think we'll wait for when you're finished and let the public speak, then we'll.
Okay.
All right, Alex, you have any questions on what he just presented on the
Not right now.
different silhouettes? Dan?
I could wait.
Mike?
No questions.
Okay, go ahead, John.
Okay, and I think, hold on 1 second. I think other than that, we did also address, specifically, we added the electrical service details, which you asked, but also in terms of the previous neighbor letter, we addressed some of the concerns that were listed in that letter. Specifically, there were 7 concerns that they outlined at the end of the letter, and we tried to go through each one of those with a condition. So we did drop the house as requested. We dropped the house 12 inches right now. Again, what is limiting that is performance of the stormwater system, and we did review that with civil, and we have a civil design that we think works, and it involves some additional drains in the back of the house to manage water that is coming down the hill, but we think it is feasible. We've dropped the second level. We dropped the second level to 8'8" from 9 feet, and we have dropped. We've left the first floor at 10 feet, and there's some design reasons for that I can go through. We think it's the appropriate height given the scale of the house, and especially since we moved it down now and addressed height by moving it down, we would be better keeping the ground floor at 10 feet. And to be clear, only a portion of the ground floor is at 10 feet. The portion underneath the rear roof deck where the kitchen is at 8'6" right now. And the reason that is because to make a roof deck work, you need additional depth to the package, and that's one of the reasons why we're trying to maintain, if we push down the living room below 10 feet, it has an effect on the adjacent space in terms of the way that the thing is designed right now. So you would have to reduce the kitchen below 8'6", which we think is not appropriate for the house of this size. And then there were some questions about alternate designs, which I think if the board, I don't know if you want me to go through those now, but I think we tried to address how each of those proposals were effectively a different building that did not meet some of the base requirements of the owner's program. So we can go through those, or we can wait to have discussion with the owner about that. I don't know if you guys had time to read this. It's sort of a detailed letter about each of the proposed.
Why don't you hit the highlights?
Okay, so I think okay, so I think I can read these. So the board was asked to consider the massing of putting the ground floor function of the house to the east of the garage. Such an approach is not feasible given that the program calls for the design that is welcoming and open and does not present itself to the street as primarily garage. So like the version that they had asked for was basically to pull the garage forward and put more of the mass of the house behind the garage. So even though the property is difficult, we have tried to develop a design where the first thing that you see from the street is not the garage, and the garage is recessed under an overhang, and that the front door is in front of the garage. So that is something that has been sort of a base part of the program, and we think is important not only for the owner, but for the street in general. The second request was massing that relocates the second floor functions that are above the living room, which is basically the primary bedroom, to move those above the kitchen. This part of the project program was to have the primary bedroom that had light and view to both the west and to the east, and so into the rear yard and into the street, both sides. That was sort of a base criteria for both that room and a western view for the office. So if we moved that function and replace and put the roof deck at the street and put that function in the rear yard, we wouldn't have opportunity to have views. So the views would be pressed up against. We wouldn't have opportunity views to the rear yard. The views would be primarily pressed up against the side yard line to the right. And I can review this on the plan if it makes sense. And then the last option they had was to do the same thing, but then to slide the living room mass further back. And what that would do would be sort of to eliminate that courtyard that we have right now that is between the dining room and the living room, and would basically give us very little opportunity for views. It sort of moves the potential for the courtyard to the front, and doesn't meet the program in a lot of ways. The sixth thing was what I mentioned before: analyze the length of the residence and try to reduce its north-south length. We did go through and reduce that length to the extent we could. And right now the bathrooms are at 5 foot, 5'9" wide. The bedrooms are 11 feet wide in that north-south direction. And we don't think it would be appropriate to go below 11 foot. 12'6" is what our standard is for a secondary bedroom in a house of this scale. And then the 8 was the analyzing the chimney. So that is something that we did. We changed the program, eliminated the fire burning chimney, and that took the chimney out of the design entirely. And we were asked to analyze the pergola, and the pergola is in a position that it doesn't, you see in the visual impact that the pergola doesn't have any visual impact. So I believe we addressed that.
Okay. Lori, you have anything on what this one through? If you could visualize what it's going.
Yeah. I don't have any questions.
Dan?
Nothing at this one.
Mike?
Nothing for me.
Okay. John, you got anything else to add?
No, I think that's what we tried to do over the last month.
Okay, before we get to the audience, anything on Zoom, Sarah?
Nobody's raising their hand to speak, and there were no comments in the chat.
Might there be somebody in person who wants to speak? Shocked.
Stephen, Stephen Crook, 15 Medical Planning.
Is that on?
Yes, it's on.
Yeah. Okay. So we appreciate the efforts that have been made so far to try to lower the profile of the building. Have you? Okay, then I don't have it. But I would like to just kind of focus in on a couple of things. Because really the critical factor in trying to preserve our views, which are not significant, you know, they've been referred to as seasonal views, partial views, but they're actually extremely nice.
Caesar, I'm sorry, I'm having a lot of trouble hearing the speaker. I don't know if there's an issue. Doug, are you hearing him?
I can't hear either.
Yeah.
It sounds mumbled.
You are speaking. Yeah, but he is also speaking loudly.
Everybody. If you remember the houses, I can't visualize which house is yours. Ours is the north. Oh, that's what I thought. Hernandez is your the southern. He's the southern house. Kevin. For those of you who can't see what's going on, they're working on a microphone right now.
Worst case, we speak into one of them.
Yeah. Pick it up.
But
Gotta use one of those.
yeah.
I can roll this. Doug, is this better?
I can hear you. I'm not sure if it's completely better.
Well, there's a fire horn going off at the same time. John, can you hear what was being said?
John, can you hear this better?
I hear better. Yeah, I hear it better in general. It was really breaking up before. I'm hearing it better now.
Okay.
Here you go. Sorry for the.
Two words, and then we'll see if they can hear.
Yeah, good, yeah.
Identify. Do you hear it?
No, I don't. It sounds gargled to me.
Mike?
Maybe too close.
Yeah.
I think maybe leave it on the stand. Yeah.
Talk here, because this is also a microphone.
Pardon?
Don't step close more, these might not be working. Just try talking now.
Testing.
Is that better?
I can hear better. Yeah. Ed, I hear you clear.
All right.
I'm backing up.
Anyway, again, Stephen Crew, 15 Meadowbrook Road. Thank you for reading my letter. I think it, you know, very coherently kind of expressed what, you know, our opposition is based on and what our appeal is based on. In essence, you know, what exists there now is a ranch house, and obviously a second story captures views for the new occupants at the expense of three neighbors on Meadowbrook Road. And our appeal to you and to the applicant is simply to try to lower that structure as much as possible. You know, I'm not an architect or an engineer. I submitted, and I'll reference several things I mentioned in my letter. Perhaps they're naive. I suspected that siting the building as far downhill towards Fargo Lane would take advantage of the downhill slope to lower the height. People seem to suggest that it's not the case, but intuitively, I don't really understand that. And I think the last go around, you, sir, even mentioned that if it might require a variance and would help, that was something to consider, citing it as far towards Fargo Lane. I also, felt that excavating the ground to lower the building, again, in my naive view, would serve to lower it, which is just obviously the critical factor in trying to preserve our views, is to lower it. Again, I defer to Mr. Maron if that is or isn't possible. I think in the last go round, Mr. Malone said that he had a civil engineer look into it, but I don't recall seeing any letter from a civil engineer discussing that at all. And, if neither of those is possible or workable, then to me, the only obvious thing left and critical thing left is the height of the ceilings in the building. And, I want to review what was submitted because I think there actually is somewhat of a misstatement in the March 20th, 24th submission. The previous building that was approved by the board members had a first floor height of 9 feet 4 inches. The current proposal is 10 feet in the living room. Now that's 8 inches. And that may not seem like a lot, but when you look at the diagrams that Mr. Malone submitted, where lowering the roof line a little bit improved the river views over and beyond the building, another 8 inches may not seem like a lot, but it is a lot to improving our views. I don't think it severely compromises the current applicant. It was actually argued in the last go round that the necessity for that height and that 9 foot 4 inches being a minimum height had to do with the classical design of the building, of the house. This house is absolutely not a classical design. I would argue that it's a design that, as Mr. Malone actually said in the last go round, is designed to bring the outside inside. It's a rectangular design with very expansive windows. I don't think there's any danger of claustrophobia. I think, by lowering those ceilings at least the 8 inches to what was previously approved. That's on the ground floor. On the second floor, the current proposal has 8 foot 8 inch ceilings. The previous proposal that again was approved and which you guys have actually referenced as a precedent had 8 foot 6 inch ceilings, 2 inches lower in the main volume. And then there was a reference that I didn't quite understand, was 8 foot in the lower volume on the north side in the flat roof portion. Now that's another 2 inches, 8 foot 6 inches on the second floor versus 8 foot 8 inches in the current proposal. So if you add the 8 inches from the ground floor and the 2 inches from the second floor, you've got almost another foot of lowering the elevation of this structure, which again is not a classical design that was referenced as requiring this. I know that you, sir, made reference to, proportion of ceiling height to room size last time. Again, I think the design of this house actually very much lends itself to not being so adversely affected by a lowering of ceiling because they're broad rooms with expansive windows, almost such as you might see in a beach house, that looks out on the ocean. Again, what I'm trying to point out is that the current house has no existing views. The 3 residents on Meadowbrook Road have very nice existing views. And I would hope to reach a compromise where there's more of a preservation of our views. The other point that I made lastly in my letter, and I'll just read that because it's simpler than trying to ramble on, that attention be paid to specifying any units or panels that might be added on top of the roof and which do not currently appear in the image renderings of the proposal that Mr. Malone showing, and which might further obstruct our views or be otherwise unattractive and unsightly. I was recalling the meetings discussing first the Brightview property proposal and then the second go round with affordable housing on the Maxon property, in which it was really pointed out that because of the downhill slope and because of the flat roofs of what was being proposed, that solar panels added on top would be extremely unsightly to those, viewing across it. This structure has a flat roof as opposed to the previous structure, which had a vaulted roof or whatever the terminology is, such that this would very much, I think, put us in danger of, if there are air conditioning units, solar panels, any other kind of units or devices that might be added on top of the roof. I would hope that they could be specified, so we don't find after the fact that that little bit of incremental view that was granted was actually taken away by a mess that's put on top of the roof. That's the best way I could.
Thanks. And that's not possible, that putting something on the roof that's not here or on before us now.
The solar panels would just go to ARB. They wouldn't
Yeah.
come to your board.
Right, but in terms of roof air conditioning, put it up, the condenser on the roof or,
Oh, it'd have to be on this plan.
so there's nothing that could go up there that's not gonna get reviewed again, either by us or the ARB. ARB does solar panels, and you might be interested, they're revising what the ARB looks at for solar panels. Are they, Mary Ann?
That's
Yeah, but they're not gonna do solar panels anymore, except in the historic district.
Okay, so who's gonna look at solar panels?
it's just a building.
It's a bill, and there's standards in that, there's building permit standards. I'm sorry, solar panel standards that have to be met.
Okay.
And the building department would, make sure that's done, but it doesn't go before another board.
I'll take one point. John, could you explain when you moved the house back, the house didn't get higher, you moved it into the.
Yeah, let me show you that here. I think that's the best way. Hold on, let me share screen again. So it is intuitive to think that you're pushing it downhill, but it has more to do with the angle of the view shed. So I think this is the view at the Croup residence here, this bottom one C. So let me just. So what you'll see is that in its current location, right, that. You guys can see that, that's the sort of the view impact. If you take that same building and move it forward in a level manner, then from that same point, the view actually gets reduced slightly. So the best position for the building is further back, as long as it doesn't raise with the grade. We're talking about keeping it at the same elevation. At the same elevation as you pull the thing forward, because the views that are being protected are lower than the roof of the building, pulling the building forward into this zone here actually has the effect of raising this line. Did that make sense?
Okay.
And that's typical condition. So that's the benefit. The other benefit was from a plan perspective.
John, that's if you keep the same elevation you just
Right,
said.
right, which is what we did. We slid it at the same elevation. We didn't let it go. We didn't let it push back down because there isn't the opportunity there. That's a level section of the, whatever. We pushed it into the hill. Pushing it further down means that you're burying the back of the building. So you wouldn't be able to use the back of the building the same way.
So the back of the building has more, it's deeper into the hill, back of the building.
Right, it already is, but you can see in the new renderings, which I thought I had up here. Hold on a second. The back of the building has been brought further into the hillside. Here, it's hard to see in that back position, but it has been, but now it's basically right at the counter height. So there's still, the windows have been brought up in the kitchen to allow the building to be deeper in. And we've added risers to this stair. So this courtyard is effectively lower by 1 foot in order to allow this to happen.
leave that picture up and go through the ceiling heights if that's a good picture to use.
Right, so just so that we're on the same page, like just where we are right now, and this, I'm sure the board already understands that, but just to review this for the record, the allowed height for the zone is 35 feet. And what we're proposing right now is 21 foot 11, which is 50%, 57% of the allowable height. So we're below the 1/3 mark in terms of how much lower we are. It's almost a story lower in terms of what it could be if there were no view preservation limitations, or if we were ignoring people's views. And then just in general, in terms of the mass of it, while we're talking about this, the allowable coverage right now, we're at 86% of the allowable coverage. The previous project was basically at 100%, 99% of the previous part. And in terms of FAR, the volume of this building that's in front of you is also at 57% of what the allowable volume is for this FAR for this. So the building is modest compared to what would be allowed if views were ignored and if the program was different in a larger building. So I just wanted to say that. In terms of why we're hoping to keep the 10-foot ceiling in here is because of the design of the building, the way that we have related the ground floor to the kitchen. So you see here, the kitchen is lower by the width of this assembly here, which is about 18 inches, which puts the ceiling in the kitchen at 8'6". And the design includes this clear story in the front that allows for the operability in the glass, and also allows for doors and a horizon line that's consistent between the two spaces. So there's a lot of design that has gone into this. And one of the other crucial pieces in terms of design is the relationship of the upper level sitting on top of the lower level, the way that it's drawn here. Also on the front, you'll see there's a relationship of the entryway and this entryway assembly, and it relies, this entryway is at 8 foot, or it's even lower, it's at 7'6". This is a powder room condition here, and how that all relates to design. So it's kind of a crucial bit of the design. Also, just wanted to point out, because I did just check the last approved project, and if we look at the project a clarifying way rather than ceiling heights, because, I'm sorry, there's more to ceiling heights than just the ceiling height. There's also the thickness of the floor package. And in the last project, the floor to floor, from the first floor to the second floor, was 11 feet. And in this project, it's 11'4". So there's only a 4-inch difference between the floor to floor height of this project. And we hope that we've made it up in other ways by, eliminating the attic. There is no attic on this project, and reducing that. So that is just one of the things. There isn't like there's an extra 8 inches here. There's actually only an extra 4 inches in terms of the floor. And the reason we need that is related to detailing this roof deck and detailing the building in general, if that makes sense. And I can go into more detail if there's questions about that.
Mr. Hernandez.
Oh, sorry. Before Mr. Hernandez speaks, just to address, we're not having any units on the roof. And just in terms of the overall height, the building is 2 foot lower than the previous one.
What's the net between last time and this time? Is there a net amount of inches that got lowered between?
16 inches was the reduction.
From the first submit.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, John.
Thanks.
It's Hernandez, 19 Meadowbrook Road. I had shawarma and onions for lunch, so.
You had what?
Shawarma and onions. Actually,
That's why I'm backing up.
Can you guys hear him okay?
Hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep. John, if you might go to page 38 of your submission.
You gotta talk here.
Oh, sorry. John, would you mind go to page 38 of your submission?
38, what does that mean? What part of the submission is that? I'm sorry.
Well, just 38 of the submission, the 38 page of the submission to the planning board.
So we don't have it, ours isn't assembled that way, so you have to be more specific.
So the visual impact analysis with the wire diagrams from my own.
Okay, that we can do.
Okay, so if this is so much more, I call your attention to the pink line versus the blue
Blow
line
it up, John.
on the bottom.
Yep.
This is so much more of a modest structure. Why is the impact to the river view from my house worse?
And
That's-
you're saying it's worse because of this section here?
That's part of it, yes. That's the primary part, yes.
Go to the rendering. That's easier to tell than looking at this.
Well, I mean, but I'm just staying on this one, Caesar, because it's worse relative to the previously approved submission. Is that what we're saying?
Correct. You
So
know,
the
you made the
pre-
point that it's so much smaller, it's so much.
Well, the
Um,
previously approved submission is the light blue line, right?
Right,
So,
correct.
so the cyan line, you can see the area,
One person at a time has to talk because
Sorry.
the area between the magenta line and the cyan line shows the difference between the potential impacts, right? So you can see that the difference between the blue line and the purple line, there's much less building there. The only portion, and also in this area, there's less building. So the only portion where there's slightly more building is in this corner right here, and that's a portion of the view that's, you know, it's already blocked in this specific view, but we were hoping to try to get as close as we could. So we think that the reductions are greater than the parts that extend beyond it. And also this reduction that we've done here affects all the properties, not just this corner of your view. Right, but that's what you're talking about. This little area here that extends beyond the blue line is what you're saying is so much worse than the existing, than the previous?
That's correct. It more so impacts my view of the river than the prior approval.
Hey, John,
Yeah.
John, is there right to the left of that where the house is existing, is there going to be added view there? Or what is through the house?
So
To the
in this
to
area,
the left there, to the left.
oh, to the left.
Go-
Well,
go
there's
down.
added view from what's.
No, right there. You see the existing house?
Oh, right.
Right there. Is there going to be added view there?
There may be a slight bit of added view right in here that it looks like the river may come down a little bit, but it's hard to tell. But yes, you're right. There is a reduction of building mass there, certainly, right? So there'd be longer views through there. Right, so there's an improvement in that area, you know, the building mass is being moved out, but we don't see this as a significant, you know, we see this as a better condition than what was previously approved from all three positions.
Okay, and then, you know.
Hold on. John, by having the purple line slightly more than what was previous on the other side from Proop's point, by moving it slightly to this side.
Yeah, let me
Better
show you the impact there. So the impact here, this is from the middle position. From the middle position, because of the building modification that we had to make, there wasn't really a change. And I think that might be similar from Proop's, let me see. Yes. It's similar from Proop's because we reduced this corner here, the impact, but there isn't really a visual impact of river views on that side because of the massive existing material.
So it didn't get better on the other properties where it got slightly less better on Hernandez.
Right, but I think it got better on Hernandez also because you're comparing it to what we had before you originally, which was the yellow
That
line.
little sliver of purple that Mr. Hernandez pointed out doesn't make it better on the other two properties. Does not make it.
Right. It's not having because there isn't river views in that side of those properties.
Okay, and then I just want to point out that, you know, the John says that he tightened up the north-south dimension of the home by 10 inches. I believe that had to be done to sit within the setback requirements. It wasn't actually done for my benefit. Is
I
that,
think the original design was within the setbacks.
no, I don't think it was.
No, we wouldn't have allowed that.
Who's
No, when he pushed it back, he had to reduce it. It's
Oh.
because of the setbacks, but it was,
Where the property gets narrower as you go up the hill.
Can we go back to the
Yeah.
original
Yeah.
submission?
You're right. Because of the setback, because the property gets narrower,
He made the building small.
made the building smaller.
But
There's
even
also
before-
the changes, the 10 inches though, that is being discussed has to do with this overall dimension here. Okay, the change that we made for the setback is this corner and this overall dimension, but it had to do with taking space out of each of the upstairs and downstairs rooms. That's how we got that to happen. So you see, we have more space, just obviously from this corner to this corner. If it was 5 feet forward from where it is, we'd have approximately this much more space to work with there. Right? If the building was slid forward.
Right, but well, I guess there's no point arguing the point. It's, it had to be done to put it where it is, right? And when we look at the conformity to the setbacks, we think about that very similar to the way we think about the view preservation overlay, which is that if you're encroaching into the setback, that requires a variance. And it's no different than lot requirements. It's no different than anything else, where the view preservation overlay sort of very specifically states that you're going to determine the best siting dimensions and configurations of principal and accessory structures to cause least obstruction of the view of the Hudson River for neighboring properties and adjacent public property and rights of way. And none of the objections that were made to the massings that we proposed actually included anything related to negative impacts on views. It was all limited to the program or design of the home. And I just, I think I kind of phrased it pretty clearly in here, just how important these views are to our family. This is literally the view that permeates right through the center of our house. And when we, in the morning, we eat breakfast at the island. When we eat dinner in the dining room. It comes right through the kitchen. It's very impactful to our house. So I think what we're trying to articulate as we look at these renderings, if I may walk over there.
You won't be able to walk.
Yeah.
And carry that thing with you. See if that works.
Is that this spot right here is that most important spot. And what we have been trying to, we highlighted this with the green boxes on the last submission. And that's what we're trying to mitigate the impact to that view.
John, were you able to see what he was pointing at, the upper left-hand corner of the rendering, of the stick diagram,
Yeah, basically the section where it's worse.
right there?
Okay. I mean, I think what Mr. Hernandez is arguing is that the view that he's decided has that priority should outweigh programming requirements for the owner and the person building the house. And that should be the primary concern. And obviously, if we were designing a house where the primary programming concern was the protection of this view and nothing else mattered, sizes of rooms, adjacencies of rooms, view from rooms, ceiling heights, if nothing else mattered except for protection of view, clearly we could get a building outside of it. What we understand this to be is a balancing of what the requirements of the owner and the requirements of this project are, and an attempt to try to do the best we can while meeting the owner's requirements and also doing our best to limit the impacts on views, not to have zero impact on view, because obviously the way to have zero impact on view is to do nothing, right? And I think in the last round, it was clear that the interpretation of code was not that there is not a two-story building here, And right now, I would say the building is under the height allowance by almost 40% or more than 40% of what is allowed. And we are doing our best to meet what our client wants within the design that we have put all this effort in, but also listen to the concerns of the client. And I think, you know, to argue that the difference between the purple line here and the blue line is something that would lead to a complete redesign of the house, or, you know, a significant redesign of the house, or an elimination of some of the crucial program requirements of the client, like having views of the river from their primary suite or having views to the courtyard from their primary suite, doesn't make sense to me and doesn't seem reasonable, especially since it's, you know, we really are trying to work with not just this party, but all three parties and try to limit the impact.
All right,
I'll
John.
talk over you. So I appreciate what you're saying, but I do also recall quite a bit of discussion of balance, right? And we have a program that we can't change, right? There's no way for us to really modify where this sits in our home and how this, you know, kind of interacts with our daily lives, right? It just is what it is. And, you know, I just want to point out to everybody, there's actually no windows in the section of structure that we'd like to have modified. So it's not like they're taking advantage of river views from this location.
The area that you're talking about is part of the primary suite. It's the closet space associated with the primary suite.
Hold on, John.
Okay.
You have.
Yeah, there's more points, but I think, you know, if you pull it up, I mean, what would it be? It's a closet. Right?
Right. It's a closet space that is typically in a primary suite like that is much bigger than what is shown there. Right. You could switch the closet space to the other side of the primary suite. It would extend the size of the primary suite, because you'd have to have circulation through the closet to get to the primary suite. And we could put the windowed area all the way on this side. The fact that portion of the primary suite doesn't have windows doesn't change the necessity for that volume. It's a very simple rectangular volume. It doesn't really change the necessity for it. You could say, oh, we should shrink their closet and make the design, cut the corner out of the closet. I understand that you could say that, but then where would we find that closet space, right? It's
Go through the rest of your points. please.
Okay, so just continuing on that point, I don't want them to not have
Point.
on a new point.
A new-
Okay,
you beat that point to death all night.
well, but it kind of interplays to the whole topic and perspective, which is, I believe that the code establishes envelope, right? And then it's Malone's job to design the right house in that envelope so as to accommodate the owner's program within reason, right? I mean, that's the point. And I'll move off of that last point because I know you don't want to hear about it anymore. There's
Not that I don't want to hear about it. It's, I think we
You get it.
talked about it enough.
Got it. And it's raining and terrible. Okay, so, and point two is that the home can tolerate additional tightening of its east-west dimension so that the front facade, without moving the house, can actually, the cantilever can come in to the east. And that would help my impact of view. The home can tolerate additional tightening of its north-south dimension. And this is estimated by as much as 6 feet. So
Did
that
you
it
go
can then
into
be
that when you get a second, actually, how you determined that it could be 6 feet narrower?
It's the north-south dimension.
Yeah, how though? I'd like to just, because when we're in a position of having to address these things, we need to understand what assumptions you made when you had a reduction of 6 feet in the north-south dimension. What assumptions, what program items did you take out?
Again, it's not that I'm taking out program items, it's that you're shaving garage, shaving center mass out of the dining room and kitchen through through that center mass. And then you're shaving out of the living room and master bedroom.
You're saying 6 feet we could do that with, right? Do you know what the sizes of the remaining rooms would be when the 6 feet came out?
God.
All right, sorry, I'm sorry.
Let him, John, please let him finish.
Okay.
And then my point about that, if you wouldn't mind pulling up the site plan.
Mike.
Get better at this. Was that riding along this setback line, I don't know if John, you can see this. But riding along the setback line,
South setback line.
the south setback line before it breaks off to the diagonal to the south, it would enable you to pull it back slightly further. And by doing that, it actually helps the view from the neighbors. It helps the view from me. If you
I'm
cut
sorry,
that
I'm not understanding because I'm not seeing. Are you saying move the building directly back to the east along this setback line?
That's correct, without coming south.
Move it further back than he already has moved.
Right.
Then you get deeper into the hill.
And you can't.
Well, okay, fine. I understand that point. I made the note that the elevation of the previously approved home's rear yard, which it was in a very similar location, it was essentially the same. And that was at a minimum of a 118.7 of grading and an average of about 120, which is 2 to 3 feet lower than is presently proposed in this grading plan.
All right, John, in the next submittal, take that into consideration and explain how you did or did not.
So Caesar, right here, you'll see the point at which we're pinning. All right.
John, I don't want to hear it now.
Okay, all right.
Go ahead.
I mean, I guess. Lastly, the utility pole. You can splice off the wires. They did it at 7 Meadowbrook. You can put it wherever you want. It doesn't have to be pole to pole across the street. I just wanted to make that point because
I don't think that's true. Ed,
It's Con Edison and how many times you can pull off a pole. The existing service can't.
Okay.
Yeah, we could put one on either side of the pole, either pole. Across the street, that's the options we had. It's just. This board is very concerned about the pole getting wider. They're trying to keep, and like it did.
trying to keep it as a single pole.
Right.
honestly. All right, I was under the assumption that that would be feasible because it's done elsewhere.
Well, it's
Con Ed changes their rules annually. Weekly. Daily.
Well, so again, the point there was just trying to get that pole in my view, because if you look at where, where it is, I'm gonna have 2 poles in the view that's left for me. So if all these edits are performed, I'm still suffering a tremendous loss of view. My family room views are basically obliterated. I have my little kitchen view that's now a quarter the size with 2 telephone poles in it. So I just wanted to, since you consider that and balance of program as you're, looking at this.
Laura, you were gonna say something and I cut you off.
Well, the last point where you asked John to come back in his next application and talk about moving the house back, isn't that gonna cause an issue on the setback on the left side of the house?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you alleviate one issue and create another one, so I think it's putting.
Accept a little explanation.
I
He
actually
just made his explanation.
No, but I actually referenced in here that it could be, it's tighter, that if you tighten the structure. That's the point, is that you have to tighten the structure by about 6 feet to get to the.
Yeah, but
Okay,
if you do that, then, make it worse for crowd, so I'm.
No.
But
Well,
also you lose your first floor windows in the back
Yeah.
of the house.
You get deeper into the hill, you lose the windows.
Okay. Sorry?
Okay, John, you heard all those points and you need to give us the engineering plans for the poles and
Geez, we have one hand, one hand up.
Oh,
I got it. And we'll go from there. And you're gonna make talk to Suzanne about the native species business.
Right.
I gotta bring you up to date on that.
Let me do this here.
there's a hand
Yeah,
up.
I know, I'm gonna do you first.
Oh, okay, so I mean, I'm not sure that it was recognized by Mr. Krupp, but you did excavate into the ground a foot. You talked about that, so that did happen. I totally respect the fact nothing would be put on the roof no HVAC or anything like that. I was wondering if there is any thought of doing solar, because I do recognize that that could change the view a little bit. John, is there any thought of solar?
At the moment, there's not like a house, I think at this point, the building code requires you to prepare a house for solar. There's a lot of shading to the south of this house, and you saw that there's not very much roof area because the one-story portion is not a roof for solar. So I'm not sure it will really make sense there, and we're not planning it.
Okay. And then Mr. Hernandez, I hear all your concerns. I also am wondering, are you working with another architect where you're getting these ideas? Yes. Okay. Because I feel like you're trying to redesign someone else's house, and I think that's a difficult position to try and defend your view with. It's a house is going to be built, and I think that that John is really trying to work with the conditions. So I just think it's a little unfair to try and completely redesign a house that someone has hired an architect to do, and to make it seem so simple that you can shave off 6 feet when there's a lot of effort that goes in by a well-trained architect to create something. I think it's an assumption that's not fair.
Jim, you have anything?
Well, again, the viability of doing what Mr. Cruz and Mr. Hernandez suggests, John seemingly defends his position, but food for thought, or maybe
There's been some new points raised.
2 points as well, yeah.
Mike?
I just want to say, John, I think you did a great job accommodating the concerns.
Anything from Zoom?
Yes, Kevin McLaughlin.
Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, Kevin McLaughlin. I'm the middle property, 17 Meadowbrook. We're the most affected by all of this. We appreciate everything you're doing to help us try to mitigate and lower everything. There's more and more consideration that you can do to lower the whole elevation will be appreciated. I did send, rather than analysis, because my 2 neighbors covered it very well and had some great points. We chose to use a picture. So did you receive the the short letter I had with the photo of the sunset?
Yes, it was a beautiful red sky. And
Yes. Probably the most beautiful sunset we've had in months.
the red sky reflects the rivers most of the time.
Yeah. So point is, we'd rather not lose this view at all. We know we're going to lose it. So as much as you can mitigate, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further observations from the floor?
Nothing lengthy. I just wanted to read that it seems to me, if in a spirit of compromise, that a few inches of lowering the house rating to 3 current residents' views balancing to a structure that doesn't even exist at the moment. They could be built in a slightly lower way, and probably for the lifetime of those residents who would live there.
Just so you
would
know,
not even
we can't hear, we can't hear.
That's what he's
reiterating that the impact on us of lowering a few more inches to another foot is dramatic. It's not just the height. It's not just the height when you lower another half foot or a foot. If you have noticed in the pictures, it's an expansive north-south view of the river that is further revealed above the structure. So the whole sense of the river being there is disproportionately enhanced for us on Meadowbrook Road, however many inches you can further lower the house. And I don't believe that for the residents who will be at 39 Fargo, that
few inches or a foot of further reduction of the structure will really have any significant impact on their quality of life or their ability to live happily forever after in this home. Thank you.
I'll be very quick. Alex Hernandez, 19 Meadowbrook Road. I think, you know, he hit the point, just like, he just drove it right home. The expansiveness of the view cannot be preserved for my home because of a two-story structure. It is, I'm the lowest home. You know, he's higher, then you have Kevin, then you have me. So this house cuts into and through the river for me. So I don't, it's not there, right? So like anything you can do to preserve that view through the kitchen is like what I'm after. And as it relates to the comment about designing the home, it's just a perspective and kind of an approach to how you think about it. I'm not trying to redesign their home. I'm trying to establish an envelope that I'd like, you know, we'd like them to work within. And then I frankly don't care what they do. Right? I mean, it's so.
You don't mean that, you don't care.
No, you understand what I mean, right? It's like, I hope they have a wonderful home, you know, it's just like.
Okay, thank you very much. Sarah, anybody come back on? Sarah, anybody come back on Zoom?
No.
You want to add anything?
No.
Any further comment on from the board?
No.
John, you need to come back, obviously with the trees and the utility pole. But see if you can sharpen your pencil on the heights. I know you brought it down 16 inches. I mean, there's some valid points to consider. Giving consideration doesn't mean what prevailing. Yes. Being right to be heard doesn't mean right to prevail, but having heard what they said, you need to see if you can do more with what you got and still satisfy the needs of the building because of the future occupants.
There's a few things that I just wanted to ask the board for direction on before we leave. So one of the requests was to continue to move the building further back in order to affect the southern end of the Hernandez view. One of the notes that we got from the other neighbors was concerned about the building getting closer to them, reducing the privacy as the thing moves back. So I don't want to be doing, you know, one thing, you know, if we continue to try to move the building back, I don't think it's really feasible without a more significant redesign. But I just wanted to point out, you know, moving it back, it's moving it back, right? It's not only affecting our window heights and bearing the building, it's also making the building and the pergola closer to the other neighbors. So that's just.
You're also making the building narrow. You're also reducing the width.
Yeah, we'd have to cut something out of the building in order to do that. Yeah.
Okay, but there was the thought about reducing the width without moving it back. Somebody.
Yeah, but I don't understand where their math of 6 feet came from.
Well, I don't think he was talking about 6 foot for one room. I think he was talking, if you shave a couple of inches from each room, it sort of adds up.
Right, but I mean, yeah, we can go through that, but at the moment we have a 3 foot wide staircase. We you know, whatever. We can go through that one more time and see if we can get a few more inches off that edge.
Okay.
And then the other thing that I just wanted to bring up is there was a question about the tree. Mr. Hernandez specifically said that he does, and I tried to explain that at the beginning of the meeting. I just want to make sure he's satisfied that this Thulia occidentalis that we have here, which is a native tree, which is evergreen, that has a max height of 18 feet. Are we changing that? Is that something that's still a concern, or could we move forward leaving that in place?
Along the south property line?
Yeah, along the south property line, because I think the concern came from him.
We encourage you to do, look at it, but we're not requiring you to do anything on the south property. We encourage you to look at it, but we have no opinion other than take a look at it.
Okay.
And that's what's, I spoke to Suzanne at length about that, and that was something that's related. Before we knock off this thing, anything else?
Nothing from me.
Suzanne, Mary Ann, Ed? Sarah? Okay, we'll move on. See you next time, John.
I think I'm still here. I'll be able to.
Careful.
Oh,
November 8th.
really? Do we have to?
Thank you.
I think it's just us on this one.
Let me see, where are we? Put my glasses on.
51 Manor Pond.
Right.
51 Manapon Lane. Oh, that is you, John. Okay.
Grab it quickly.
This is gonna be short. So.
Yes, I'll hang it out.
Asking or telling?
Thank you, gentlemen. Be careful going home.
Good night.
Right.
Okay. John Malone, Ferguson Malone, architecture representing the, the Court family. So this is a project that was in front of the board before. Show screen again, and it's for basically the addition of a swimming pool. It's the limit of what is being proposed. And the issue that we had last time is that they were trying to add the swimming pool while keeping the existing coverage associated with the deck. And they came back to us and asked us, what if we take the deck down? How does that work with a swimming pool? So that's what is in front of you now, is basically proposed to take the existing deck, which is large, includes a hot tub and stuff, reduce it to its minimum and replace that coverage with the pool coverage.
John, Ed went over this very carefully, and he thinks you're still over on the subdivision allowable subdivision coverage.
Right. I think there were some references in the notes from Doug's office about going.
I'll send you, John, a breakdown. I kind of. I'll send you something that makes it easy to explain.
No sense going through the details.
Okay. So I think in terms of the notes that we have, there was civil, and then they were the coverage issue. So I can do that offline with Ed, and the civil, obviously, we can do offline with Doug.
We have other questions other than coverage, but
okay,
the coverage should be addressed offline until there's if there can be agreement. You got to the tree removal that's planned, and the reason for removal and the replacements need to be noted.
Okay, we'll get an assessment. I don't think we've had an arborist out there since the last project, so we have to get someone.
And the construction access is an issue with the root protection in the route of construction access to get back to the pool.
I think we did show root protection for the tree and tree protection for the tree that's remaining in that area, and the access is through here. So I think we have that covered.
And again, on trees, the rear screening that's existing, it might be rotted out or eaten out by deer. Show some pictures that what's there already is sufficient to screen the pool.
Okay, we can do that.
And there's drainage, Doug, where are you? There's drainage issues, Doug, on the patio?
Well, I have a couple questions on that. One of the things I wanted to point out was something that I spoke with Ed about. When the building department goes out on site, contractors are stockpiling material on these very tight sites. So we want a construction sequence, something that is somewhat thorough, that can be followed by a contractor to, maybe it's remove, fill immediately. But one of the comments is essentially a lot more detail on how that's going to be done in such a tight spot.
Right.
You have a lot of tree roots. You have a proposed infiltrator. Right. You can't stockpile on there before. So we're going to look at that pretty critically.
It seems to make sense, given the area there, that you should just, part of the project should be to excavate the pool and take it out with you, right? And then it probably works.
Well, now that you got, look at the construction access to the west. There's all trees there. How do you get past those trees?
Oh, I'm sorry, that's the proposed planting after the fact. So those trees aren't there yet. So this is what's there.
I don't know if this is the last comment, but as you noted, if you go down Kingsley, there's rock outcrop up to grade?
Yeah, right here.
Have you done any deep tests to show that you can put this pool in the ground without rock?
We haven't done any testing yet for it. We're really just trying to, we're in the situation of making sure it's feasible from a zoning perspective. And then we can do that.
Well, we don't want to approve an in-ground pool and wind up with an above-ground pool.
No, I think I meant feasible more from the zoning, the coverage calculation. Once we have that established, we can do some test pits.
Well, I won't agree to anything until we know you can put the pool in.
Okay. So if you want us to do test pits now, we can do that. We can examine the soil.
Well, eventually.
Once you see if you
Get the coverage straight.
if you feel you're comfortable with the coverage before you come back here, make sure you do test pits.
Okay. The pool, just so you know, Caesar, the pool is a 3 foot to 5'6" depth. It's not a deep end pool. It's too small.
Okay, well, like I said, the rock that you can see is right up to grade.
Right.
Does anybody know, Ed, you worked on that. Did that house, did the foundation require rock excavation?
38 of
So you don't remember this one?
John would know.
they all look the same.
Is there any history on the construction of the house that lends itself to the house had trouble with rock? If you go in the basement of the house, if there is a basement, is there rock?
There's a lot of full depth 10-foot basements in there, so I'm not sure they had trouble. But there's
John, there's an infiltrator on the site already, isn't there? Didn't I see that?
There seems to be evidence from an old drawing of a dry well. Yeah, but we don't have detailed evidence of what's there. There's just some circles somewhere.
Okay.
An old drawing.
Anyway, let's move along. Lori?
I was just gonna say, I'm not really sure what you're planning around the pool, but I know you would never segment and come back for
For what?
patio around the.
No, I
Wow.
think they understand that, we're banging right up against the edge of what's allowed, so I think they understand.
They can't worry, since this is part of Legend Hollow.
They also have their own.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
the subdivision plat.
Yeah.
Puts limits on it, and so they couldn't go to the zoning board anyway.
Okay, double check.
So after the pool is in, they're gonna put a patio in without telling us? I didn't mean that. You wouldn't do that, right, John?
We wouldn't do it, but yeah.
Dan,
I have no questions.
Mike,
Nothing for me.
Sarah?
Nobody's raising their hand to speak and there are no comments in the chat.
Okay, so we have a pool with no patio and you gotta address the coverage issue.
Okay, so I'll do that with you later this week. Something like that.
I'll send it to you in the morning.
All right, thank you.
I actually did some stuff for you.
Okay, cool.
51 minutes. Okay, thank you, John.
All right, I think that's it for me. All right. Sorry to get too loud there. I was just, whatever, getting late. All right.
Certainly is. No, we're not as late as sometimes.
Okay. All right. Thank you,
Good night.
guys. Thanks.
Going to the next one, which is 2024-10, 2 Roland Road.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me?
Hi there.
Yep, we got you.
Okay, great. Hi, Matt Behrens. I am representing the Hogan residents at 2 Roland Road. I will share my screen. Let me see if I can zoom in here a little. Okay, just a quick brief history. Existing 2-story frame residence. They currently have a driveway that comes in here. It's at the this is the west side of the property in front of the house, but the garage and the parking area is all the way over here. So what happens is that the family has to come in this way and back out that way. So what they want to do, the genesis of this application was to extend the driveway this way, create a new curb cut so that it makes it a little bit easier to get in and out of the garage. When we started talking with the building department about the requirements for this, we reached out and got a new survey where we discovered then that the existing lot coverage was exceeded by a considerable amount. And the chances are that there is an existing flagstone patio around this pool. The chances are that that is the victim here. This predates the current owner. This was brought up when we commissioned the survey for the driveway. So we are here to rectify that and also get approval for the driveway extension. We are doing some investigations into what was previously approved. The pool was built a long time ago. I do have the dates, but off the top of my head, I think it's like 1998, something like that. Sorry?
I'll send you the as-built survey after the pool was built.
Okay, great. And I know one of the comments from Han Engineering was related to indicating what was previously approved. So once we get that information, we can add that. But the thought would be to get referred to the ZBA so that we can attempt. I know we do still have a lot of work to do, but attempt to get the lot coverage increase approved by the zoning board. It is an existing flagstone patio. It's on a stone dust base, so it is mostly impervious, except for the flagstones themselves, but they do sit right on grade.
Your coverage is not accurate because the stone wall along the Broadway is part of coverage, and that has to be added in.
Yeah, it is added in the totals. It's just not called out on my coverage diagram, and I saw that in Doug's comments. So we'll fix that, but it is included in the totals.
Is the entire patio around the pool is undocumented? Or
A portion of it.
do we know which
portion of it.
portion?
And we'll dig into how much.
As-built survey when the pool was built. I'll give it to him. He can calculate it out for next
Okay,
month.
so it would be good to know what was previously approved and what is undocumented on the.
Yes,
patio.
it would, and then again, that was called out by the Han team, so I will we'll clarify that and rectify it.
All right, the topography to the east, when you're out on the road, it slopes down to the neighbor.
Correct.
To the, and I'm not sure if there's a drainage issue. Doug, is there a drainage issue going to the east because of the slope to the east coming off the driveway?
On this side.
Do we need an elevation profile?
I'll take a look at it.
Yeah, and
He still has to address the drainage. We mentioned that.
so, and the other thing is, Caesar, is that it does continue to slope away. There's a bit of a swale right here between the two properties. The other house is, is a good, I'd say, off the top of my head, I'd say it's a good 30, 50 feet away.
All right, we need a little discussion on that because the new driveway is going to create new drainage to the east.
Yeah, and we've talked about if we need to put in a drainage system, we can do that for sure.
I'll talk to Doug about that.
Yep, I will.
Yeah,
I'll reach out to you tomorrow,
it is. It's mentioned in number 5, comment number 5, Caesar.
And you need to get a curb cut permit from the village.
Understood.
Village trustees, now, if
No.
we,
It's not the trustees, DPW. gives-
oh, DPW, do we need to him have that before we approve?
No,
it?
they'll give it.
Now, he can't do it until he has it.
Okay, he can't go to them until he has us.
Well,
That's how,
Yeah.
something as small would be that way.
yeah.
Okay. Do you have any other presentation?
No, I think that, that pretty much covers it.
Lori,
No, you covered it with your questions.
No further questions.
Mike,
Nothing from me.
Sarah?
Nobody's raising their hand to speak and there were no comments in the chat.
Okay, thank you, and we'll
Okay.
see you next time.
Thank you.
And when we get the coverage clear of what is and what isn't, then you can go to the ZBA, but we hate to send you to the ZBA with half information on the coverage.
Understood.
Okay, thank you. That was two rolling. Well, we're going to number 10, 2023-07, 255 Mountain Road.
Okay, you want, if you're here,
Wait till he introduces himself.
pardon?
Wait till he gets on.
Oh, okay.
It's got 5 seconds.
Hi, good evening. Jim Adicarico with Cronin Engineering. Representing
And
Maria
somebody-
Rackett and family.
Hold
Whitney
on.
And Whitney
Hold on.
Singleton from Singleton, Davis and Singleton on behalf of the applicant. Attorney for the applicant.
Is there anybody else gonna be on?
I think the client's watching, but he's not participating.
Mary Ann, you want them to present first, or you want to talk?
I think maybe going through the history of it might be appropriate to do
Okay.
that first.
Why don't we do that? There's a long history going back to 12 years
2000,
ago.
Yeah, I understand it not only predates me, but it predates many of the board members.
it predates all of the board members.
Yeah,
I don't
okay.
think nobody was on the board when this first came up, and I don't think you were on the board for the latest step in it, which was a non-step in it.
Our
So it's-
regional attorney, Mary Ann Stessage will go through the history because it is a long history. with-
Yeah, it's a long history, not because so much was happening, but because there were huge gaps in what was happening. But just back in 2008, it was the previous owner, who was Chuck Payton, came in with a proposal to subdivide the property into 3 lots. And when the board did the site capacity analysis, it was under 3, it was for 2, it was 2.88, so they could only get 2 lots. But they went and got a variance from the zoning board of appeals for 3 lots, for 3-lot subdivision. So then, not for a 3-lot subdivision, for site capacity of 3. Now, site capacity of 3 doesn't necessarily mean you can have 3 houses if you can't meet the setbacks and the frontage requirements. So then the applicant came in with a proposal for a cluster development. In the code, it's called an average density, a cluster development, which would mean that there would have to be the same amount of square footage required for 3 lots, and they got to vary a little bit. But the lots could be smaller. And there has to, 1/3 of the area has to be a conservation area. That's a requirement of the cluster law. Then the other lots could be smaller and they could have smaller setbacks. So the applicant came in with a proposal for a cluster. That was in, I think it was in 2008. There was complete secret review done of it at the time. And the village hired AKRF planners to help with the secret review. And eventually a negative declaration was issued. And oh, I know. One part I left out. There has to be a reason for the cluster, like to preserve important natural features or whatever. It can also be to preserve historic features. And the house, the existing house on the lot was, I don't know, Eisenhower slept there or thought about sleeping there or something like that. So it was considered to have historic significance by by the applicant and by some of the members of the board. So that's why they decided it was appropriate for cluster. So anyway, they approved the cluster. And then it was in 2009 then, after all the secret review and everything, they got preliminary site plan approval and also limited site plan approval. And there were lots of conditions that had to be met before they could get prior. And the conditions were pretty significant, like conservation easements and easement to preserve the house, that the houses could only be a certain size. The Eisenhower house couldn't come down, it couldn't be changed. So that was in 2009. And then in 2012, the owner came back and I would say, oh, I know, and one other important condition of this, and it's significant now, was that the town of Greenberg had to extend the public sewer line to the property. This actually what took up a lot of time on this. Okay, so then 2012, the owner comes back and asked for conditional final subdivision approval. Pretty unusual. It's not something you would usually give unless there's just a little condition still outstanding, whatever. But he talked the board into it. He said he had a buyer, and if he didn't have the approval, the next day, he was going to lose the buyer or whatever. So then the board at that time agreed to conditional final subdivision approval. But all the conditions were still on that condition. So it was really not different from the preliminary approval. All those conditions still had to be satisfied. And one of the conditions was that they have a conservation, and it's still a condition that a conservation easement be approved. And the applicant did come to, and the board of trustees has to approve that. The applicant did come to the board of trustees. The board of trustees was ready to approve it. There'd been a lot of back and forth between the applicant and myself on the conservation easement. We agreed on something. And then he was supposed to come to the planning board it was Board of Trustees on June of 2012. And he didn't. He asked to have it be adjourned. And then we didn't ever hear anything about it again until 2018. And then in 2018, the applicant came in to ask for, originally, he came in to ask for an extension of the preliminary subdivision approval. He originally wanted an extension of the conditional approval. So we can't extend the conditional approval. You haven't done any of the conditions. You want to extend the preliminary, maybe the board would do that. And then, so he was going to come back to the meeting to do that. And then he didn't. So a lot of this time was spent because the applicant would, get to a point and then not follow through. So then, but that was in February 2018. So there never was an extension. There never was an extension of it. The board was considering it. I think they were ready. I found the old minutes on it. It was just at the beginning of when we were doing verbatim minutes. So we had verbatim minutes, and that's in there. But then that was at the January meeting, and then the February meeting didn't come back. Then, but then it must have been sold soon after that meeting, because in March 2018, the Racanelli, who's the owner now, came and got an extension of the variance, because remember they had a variance for 3 lots, and variant under the code, variance is expired if you don't start building within a year, and they didn't start. So we got an extension of the variance in 2018. I guess it's expired again, but anyway, so that was what happened in 2018, and then there was nothing until, there was nothing. For a long time, I told you one of the conditions was that the sewer extension get approved. So I think that was in the works for a long time. I think it was just approved, Jim, in December 2023.
We finally got Town of Greenberg to,
2023, yeah.
approve our, yeah, exactly, to approve my
So
design.
that's why they're back here now. Okay, so I think included in the submission was, the conditions on the final conditional subdivision approval. Those conditions are there. I should point out that there are a few other conditions because that resolution said it didn't supersede the conditions in the preliminary. So there's some in there, but they're not really significant. The most significant ones are in that. So those mostly still have to be satisfied. It seems like the sewer one's about to go. And then on the easements and the restrictive covenants and stuff, Whitney just sent some drafts to me just yesterday. I haven't had a chance to go over them yet.
Wasn't there, I don't know if you mentioned it, but you may have, and I missed it. One of the conditions for the cluster was a buffer.
Oh, yeah, no, I didn't go through all the conditions,
okay.
but that's not really a condition of the approval is under our code. There's a requirement that there be a 30-foot buffer around the periphery of the property, but
Right.
If you want to look at it, it's probably not, it's not a section of the code you've ever looked at. I think this is the first time, I've been the attorney for a long time. This is the only time we had a cluster, but it's in section 224-88. If you want to look at it, those are the rules for clusters. But one of the rules for a cluster is that there has to be a minimum landscape buffer of 30 feet from the periphery of the proposed development, and no principal or accessory building or parking area in a cluster development shall be closer than 30 feet.
Right, so the last approval, which expired, was the conditional final subdivision approval.
Yes, in
The
2012.
most recent, and it had conditions which probably included the preliminary subdivision conditions.
Most of them, but there are a few other conditions.
So
in the
new,
preliminary.
so
No, not new ones, old ones that weren't incorporated
Okay.
in there, because it was one of those things that the resolution had to be done by
Okay.
tonight, it was a crazy time.
okay. All right.
Okay, so with that said, and I have to go with Mary Ann's explanation because I don't know the history beyond that. We simply wish to comply with the balance of the resolution and finalize this. And yes, I dumped on Mary Ann yesterday a copy of the draft declaration of covenants, restrictions, and easements that were required under the conditional final subdivision approval. And so she's obviously got to review that. And we also got some comments from your engineer and from your landscape consultant. I don't know if we received those today or when we received them, but I just, if it's okay with the board for purposes of, getting everyone up to speed and clarification, I was hoping that we could just go through those. Most of them we don't have any issue with, but I just wanted to go through them. I believe there's 9 comments from Mr. Hahn.
Caesar, I know, actually, I wanted to point out that one of them is off, the one that says that the 30-foot buffer should just be shown around the
Right.
street. Yeah, it's got to be around the periphery of the whole thing. That was a
Okay.
misunderstanding.
So if you don't mind me sharing my screen, we can just go through those and clarify them all, okay? Okay. Sure. Okay. Can you see my screen all right, or should I enlarge it?
Yep.
I think that's fine.
The first one, the existing accessory building on lot 3 is located within the front and side yard setbacks, therefore a variance is required. Mary Ann, I don't know that you would dispute this, but I mean, if you have an existing condition, a pre-existing non-compliant condition that is not being intensified by virtue of the underlying action, I don't know that a variance would be required for that. But so for it not to be an issue, we plan on taking that building down anyway. So what we'd rather do is simply designate on the plat that that accessory building is going to be removed. I presume that that's okay with the board.
No, it's not.
No, it's not, it's a tired.
Counselor, there's quite a few things
Nice, not-
that fit that definition along the backside of the property that are in the buffer and in the conservation easement, so.
Yeah, so, I mean, if,
That's right. The resolution recognizes that.
Okay.
It says that they could be there.
Go ahead.
okay, so, would it be your preference for us to, I mean, I really don't think it's necessary for us to get a variance. I don't think that that's a proper conclusion of law, but to avoid dispute, we're just going to put on the plat that the building is to be removed. Is that acceptable to the village?
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. The existing coverage and FAR for lot 2 should be provided. We're happy to provide that. And Jim, you cut me off if I'm saying anything wrong.
Sure.
We don't believe any variances are required. The approved coverage and FAR values from the resolution. If you don't read this carefully, you don't really get that. The resolution itself minimized the area that could count towards FAR and building coverage. And so I think I put this in the proposed declaration, but do you want the approved coverage and FAR just in case that changes in the future? If development coverage goes from 12% to 15% or 6% in the future, I don't know that you want to have the FAR on the file plat. It kind of,
What? I'm
Just-
Whitney, would you make the point? You know what? I can't read. Read to me the.
let me see if I can, does that help at all, Mary Ann?
No, you know what? Okay. The
Okay,
approved
all right.
coverage and FAR values from resolution for. Yeah, no, well, Whitney, they have to be, because one of the approved drawings was this SP-1.3. It's referred to a lot in the resolution, and you didn't include it in your, you didn't include it in the submission. But I happen to have it, and that SP 1.3 does show, and it was very important to the this whole approval process. Let me get it. That SP 1.3 has a note that says the building coverage and FAR for lot 1 to be based on a lot size of 23,179 building coverage.
Mary Ann, I'm fine with that. What I'm saying is, it says that the FAR and building coverage should be based upon a lot size smaller than what is there. And I'm fine with that. But what happens in the event that your code changes the permissible building coverage and FAR values? I think it would be more appropriate to put on the plat that notwithstanding the lot size for lots 1 and 3, development coverage shall be based upon a maximum lot size of X or a lot size of Y for lots 1 and 3.
I don't think it works, Whitney, because the way the condition reads.
The condition reads that.
I see what you're saying. I see what I'm not.
Doesn't have to be resolved now. I just don't want to. Okay. I don't want to lock something in for the future and then all of a sudden zoning changes, development coverage changes. I'm fine with setting forth what the permissible building coverage is for those lots and permissible FAR for those lots. Okay, and we can take that up further, and you'll see that I put that in my declaration for you to review.
Can I just add one thing for a minute, Whitney?
Sure.
Mary Ann, I know I had heard that, that drawing SP 1.3 was missing, but I think what happened was I had renamed or renumbered a lot of the plans. those plans were done by my office, you know, back in 2012. And when I updated, you know, I basically started from, not from scratch, but I kind of redid the entire document sheet set, or the drawing sheet set, and I believe I just renamed that drawing. So I believe all that information that was part of the record back in 2012 is in this set. And I'll confirm that, but I believe that's the case.
I didn't see it in what was submitted, but you know, frankly, it's a little hard to see because it's so small when you look at it on the screen. I guess I'd need to see the blow up, but I did not see that note, that project note.
Yeah, that's it.
Anyway, okay.
Yeah.
You make sure
So-
all the dimension charts are on there as well. Jim,
Yeah, I will. Yeah, I'll confirm that, but I think that's the case.
I didn't see those on the other submission.
Condition number 4, I know it's been a long night for you guys, so I'm gonna just try to move it along. Condition number 4, we have no problem with. Obviously, Mr. Hahn was not aware that I had recently provided to Mary Ann the easement documents for her review. Number 5, the buffer for Mountain Road is showed to continue around the entire property. It should only be shown
It's
for the
wrong, Nick.
Yeah, okay,
It's
so we will leave it the way it is with regard to number 5. The pavement restoration detail should include full width replacement of the top course in asphalt and concrete road base. Jim, are you comfortable with what that means? Because I didn't really get that.
Yes, yeah, Doug and I
Okay,
spoke about
So
it.
we're
Yeah,
fine with that.
we're fine with that.
It is number 7 just says that until we can convert to municipal water and sewer, that we have to show the septic tank, leaching fields, and private well. We have no problem with that, correct, Jim?
That's correct.
Okay. Comments from the village landscape architect attached below, and any comments from the planning board that might be raised in tonight's meeting. As I go down to the landscape consultant, there was some question as to whether or not there needs to be mitigation with regard to any trees that are being removed for the installation of the sewer line or anything else. And there was some clarification that was sought with regard to the sanitary force main along Mountain Road frontage and the new sewer and water services for lot number 1 and 3. We will,
Jim.
we can
I
certainly,
apologize. Yeah, Jim and I can go over that. We just wanted to
Okay.
minimize the damage to the existing big trees in the buffer. So
understood.
we relocate that easement a little bit.
Okay, and just with regard to the survey, it's almost like an oxymoron here. We want a survey of the presence and size of existing trees, yet almost all of those are within a conservation easement that we're not going to be touching. I'm assuming that you want the survey of the trees for those areas of the lots that are going to be impacted, not things within the conservation zone which are going to be preserved.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so yeah, just
That's good, yes.
just
Okay.
where we're going, the intrusion for the
Okay.
the easement sewer.
All right, I don't have anything else other than this, and I told Mary Ann that my client was gonna bring it up tonight, and my client is having me bring it up. We're a little confused, and I know Mary Ann says that there's not only a long-standing history, but it was very important to your predecessor board. We're a little confused why the permissible development coverage for lots 1 and 3 is less than the actual sizes for lots 1 and 3. And my client would like to be able to utilize the 12% building coverage for the actual lot size as opposed to some artificially reduced number. We're not gonna die on this hill, but and we're not gonna make a big issue out of it, but we would like to know what it is, what the reason is that we're not permitted to have the complete building coverage and FAR associated with this.
So there was a reason. and Mary Ann will provide.
Yeah, Whitney, when we talked yesterday, I couldn't remember what it was. It's 16 years ago. My memory's going, but I did find, because I still keep hard files. Not on everything, but I did keep the hard file on this project for some reason, even though it kind of disappeared, but the AKRF, the planning firm we had hired, had in their design analysis, I'm gonna read it because it's short, it explains
Okay.
it. Sheets SP13 and SP14 identify locations for the new residences on lots 1 and 3 with a 70 by 45 envelope for surface coverage. Houses in compliance with the code could conceivably be built to the extent of this envelope. Given the location and size of the properties, these houses would be out of scale with the existing house or neighboring houses. So because of that, they said it, that's why the reduced lot size, hence the reduced FAR and coverage of the house.
Okay.
And it was something that was real. I mean, and by reading the resolution, you could see it was really thought out. I mean, it had exact numbers and even said it can't be bigger than this, even though the lot is so many square feet. It was very specific. I couldn't remember why, but this
And
memo
it's in the
explained.
resolution, one of the items of the resolution.
Oh, yeah, yeah. It's not in the
I understand
resolution.
that.
It is on the drawings,
Yeah.
as well, the drawings. But wouldn't you understand why it was the planner, and this was part of this was part of the secret process.
Okay. All right. So if it was part of the secret process and you adopted a neg deck based upon that, I'm kind of dead in the water on that issue. But anyway, okay. So we will get back to you on these issues, and we'll give you a new submission addressing all of this. And in the interim, Mary Ann and I will go back and forth on the declaration of covenants, restrictions, and easements to see if those are acceptable to her. And we'll resubmit soon. Is that acceptable to you, Jim?
Yes.
Anything else?
I have a question. I'm not sure what it is you're submitting. Mary Ann, what are they submitting? An application for conditional?
Well, I think, no, at this point, they're, I believe, putting in an application for final subdivision approval.
Yeah.
You'll have to ask, though, for an extension of the conditional because that expired. Extension of the conditionals. That
All
expired.
right, so what we'll do is we're gonna update our final subdivision plat. And we will request an extension of the prior conditional resolution.
Right,
And
right.
We'll be
Once we do
before
that,
you.
then we do the final subdivision.
No, then they go to CBA.
Then they have to get their variance extended, so they go to the CBA and get that extended.
So the
Then
first thing we're
once-
gonna do is,
But then they have to satisfy all the conditions.
do they
Mary
satisfy
Ann,
the?
help me out here for a second. What variance from the ZBA needs to be extended?
There's a site capacity of 3. You'll see if you, there's a, I'll send you the variance from March.
Okay, that would be helpful.
Remind me, Whitney, if I
Okay,
don't
I
send
will.
it to you, remind me and I'll send you. There was a
All right.
variance extending it in May of 2018, but it's still only good for a year, so that's gotta
Okay,
get extended.
but was it a variance or an interpretation? I thought it was an interpretation.
No. Yeah, the variance, the interpretation came after the variance. The variance was back in, I think it was 2008. And it was for a site capacity of 3 because it was 2.88. Then the reason there was an interpretation was there was a question about whether granting the site capacity also meant that you could have a cluster of 3 because under state law, you can't have more. It's really complicated, and I don't want. It's not important. Don't worry about the interpretation, but you do need to get an extent. I can explain it to you offline with me if you want.
Okay, all right, that's fine. Thank you for the board's time.
All right, so to be clear, they're asking for an extension of conditional final subdivision approval, which was
Right.
previously granted but expired.
Yes.
So they're coming back to extend that. That's
Right.
number one. Then what happens?
Then when they show that they've, done all the conditions, then
They don't have
then
to show that they did all the conditions to get the extension.
No.
Okay, so we'll vote on that next time, if they got their stuff together. And then they go away.
They work on all the conditions, and when the conditions are
Including the variance.
satisfied, right? When the conditions are satisfied.
And one of those conditions is to go to the trustees and get the conservation easement approved.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's different ways to do it, but.
Yeah.
Conservation easement has to be agreed to.
Now, do they need to submit some piece of paper to extend what was previously approved, or by letter? How?
I think by letter.
Well, look,
A letter's fine.
but the plans have to match, or
Yeah, Jim, when you said you
That's
redid,
the plans.
yeah, when you redid it's a little bit hard to compare what was approved before to what was submitted, so we have to be able to see that it's exactly the same.
We would want it to be exactly the same, because
Otherwise they have to do a new subdivision process. You don't want to go through that again.
thank you, Mary Ann.
No, so
Understood. I honestly, I could change I can change the drawing numbers back to the way they were. It might be easier.
Okay, so we will submit a request for an extension of the conditional final subdivision approval. We will resubmit our plans to make sure that they properly reflect what, I think that they already properly reflect what's in the condition in the resolution of approval, but we will also have them reflect the items that your engineer and landscape consultant have requested. And
Okay.
I will talk to Mary Ann offline as to what's needed with the zoning board. Okay?
Okay, but you don't go to the zoning board until you get this conditional.
Well, I think this board should understand it better. That's what I'm looking.
Oh, well, no, yeah, wait till you give them.
Just give us a month till this board can catch up. There's a lot to digest before you go to the zoning board.
Okay,
So you need to come back here with your letter
Yeah,
asking for the, before the ZBA.
that's fine.
Condition.
Although I always find it interesting that not in Irvington, but just everywhere, people think that you can't go to the zoning board when you have a subdivision or site plan application. The law expressly allows for it, but in any event, I understand that. I understand the benefits in finalizing with your board first. So anyway, all right, and
We'd like to fully understand and have something that we can approve. If we don't have something that we can approve, we write over to the ZBA and say, we don't know what the hell this guy is going to you for. We hasn't satisfied us yet.
right, but I don't want to get into it. There was a change in the law several years ago that
Yeah, but you know about it, it's not a big deal.
it's not a big deal. I agree with Marion, not a big deal. Again, thank you for your time tonight, guys. I appreciate it.
Hold it 1 second. Don't go away.
Okay.
Any questions?
I do have a question, but you might not be ready to answer this now. And if you are, like, I would keep it short. What is the intention with this cluster?
The intention, well, here, you know what would be helpful? Hold on a second. I'm just going to call up for you. Do you have in front of you a copy of the proposed plan? Plat? I'll call it up. I'll call it up for you and I will be quick. Okay, so this is the parcel. It's I think it's lot number 2 is 2.86 acres. Lot number 1 is 0.6 acres. Lot number 2 is 0.5 something. Lot number 3 is 0.5575 acres. And what we've done is we've taken the house, or what your board has done, is taken the house and the accessory structures and everything else on the property, and essentially created a conservation easement of everything that you can see in green, so that that land is going to remain as is. And then there will be 2 newly created building lots in the front of the property, and they will share access through this driveway. So the owners will come in here and access lot 3. They will come in here and access lot 1, and they will continue to access lot number 2. And as Mary Ann pointed out, there are development coverage requirements for both lots 1 and lot 3 that prevent, what would be perceived as overdevelopment of those lots. And so it's basically 2 new homes and preservation of the existing home. And various covenants, restrictions, and easements to facilitate the water, sewer, access, and conservation. And the limitations on what can be done with these lots, as far as the types of homes, size of homes, and the architecture of lot number 2 in the back, that it can't be just, bulldozed and, put up a new 8,000 square foot house. That's basically it.
Okay,
So-
thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, we're not done yet.
Yep.
Mike,
No questions.
Sarah, anything from the public?
Nobody's raising their hand to speak and there are no comments in the chat.
Okay, now we're done.
That's only because it's so late.
Well, there was a comment once when we came up with a solution of some sort, that the person who came up with the solution said, I wasn't being inventive, I just wanted to go home. Okay, thank you. We'll see you next time.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay, the Irvington Planning Board meeting of April 3rd, 2020.